In a deeply emotional moment shared with his fans, young actor Iain Armitage, best known for his portrayal of Sheldon Cooper on Young Sheldon, took to social media to honor the life and legacy of his grandfather, Richard L. Armitage, who passed away peacefully surrounded by loved ones. With raw vulnerability, Iain wrote, "He was my hero. I'm heartbroken." For many, grief is a storm that descends suddenly. For Iain, it came with a quiet ache, like pages turning in a favorite book where a beloved character vanishes too soon. But this story is not just about loss. It's about love, legacy, and the indelible mark one man left on the heart of his grandson. A bond beyond generations. Richard L. Armitage, a name well known in political and diplomatic circles, lived a life of service and purpose. But to Iain, he wasn't the Deputy Secretary of State. He wasn't the man with a steady voice in tense international meetings. He was simply Pop Pop, a man who smelled faintly of aftershave and old books, a man who could light up a room not just with his storied accomplishments, but with a single crooked smile meant just for his grandson. In a quiet Instagram post accompanied by a photo of a young Iain perched on his grandfather's lap, the 16-year-old actor wrote, "He taught me how to shake hands properly, to ask questions, to never interrupt. He taught me how to be brave without being loud." The picture speaks volumes. Richard, dapper in a wool blazer, looks on as Iain, wide-eyed and joyful, beams at the camera. A captured moment suspended forever. More than a mentor, though they came from two very different worlds, one of diplomacy, the other of television sound stages. Richard and Iain shared a deep intellectual curiosity. Iain, precocious and bookish even before he stepped into Sheldon's shoes, found in his grandfather a wellspring of stories, advice, and thoughtful silence. Richard wasn't one to offer platitudes. Instead, he asked questions. "Why do you think that happened?" He'd ask after an episode aired. "How did it make you feel?" These weren't just lessons in acting. They were lessons in life. "He never talked down to me," Iain shared in his tribute. "Even when I was little, he treated my ideas with respect. He challenged me, but he always made me feel like I could rise to the challenge." Moments that linger. In between sets and scripts, Iain often traveled to visit his grandparents. Some of his favorite moments were the simple ones: long walks with Richard, discussions about history and ethics over dinner, or playing chess on a battered board missing a pawn. "I always used the queen's rook instead," Iain recalled. Pop Pop would just wink and say, "Creativity over convention." I never forgot that. Their bond went beyond blood. It was forged in mutual admiration. Richard was proud of Iain's burgeoning career, but even prouder of the kind of person he was becoming. In an old video clip from a family gathering, Richard can be seen watching Iain perform a monologue from To Kill a Mockingbird. His eyes, usually analytical and focused, soften. He claps not just out of courtesy, but with genuine awe. A farewell too soon. When Richard passed, Iain was filming an emotional scene for young Sheldon's final season. The timing felt cruel, but in many ways, it gave him a unique way to channel his sorrow, not just as an actor, but as a grandson navigating a new world without his guide. "I did the scene, and I could hear his voice in my head," Iain said in an interview, telling me, "Keep going, son. Keep your chin up." The crew, many of whom had watched Iain grow up on set, gave him space to grieve. Co-stars embraced him with a quiet understanding that grief, especially for someone so young, is a heavy coat to wear. Legacy of kindness. Richard L. Armitage's legacy will stretch far beyond his years in government. For Iain, that legacy is about kindness, about seeing people not just for what they do, but for who they are. He believed in the power of listening, Iain wrote. He told me once that you can learn more from a quiet room than from a loud debate. I try to remember that every day. In the days following his grandfather's passing, tributes poured in from across the world. Former colleagues, diplomats, and public servants sharing stories of Richard's integrity and wit. But it was Iain's message that struck the deepest chord. Because in the end, Richard wasn't just a statesman. He was a storyteller, a chess player, a quiet observer, and a warm presence in the life of a young boy who would grow into the kind of man he'd be proud of. Moving forward, Iain says he'll carry his grandfather with him in every performance, every thoughtful pause, every curious question. He taught me to look beyond what's right in front of me, Iain shared, to see the bigger picture, and to never forget where I come from. As young Sheldon draws to a close, and Iain steps into the next chapter of his life,